Hey, it's Benji Cole, son of Al Cole from CBS Radio and host of the syndicated talk show, People of Distinction. A talk that gives you an in-depth view of some of the most dynamic, intelligent, and successful people on the planet. Run to our website, alcoleenterprises.com for more info. Email me through benji@alcoleenterprises.com if you'd like to get involved with what we have going. And as always, please continue to like and follow our broadcasts. People of Distinction is internationally syndicated solely due to the love and support that you all continue to give. We're available across all major distributors, and as long as you keep following, we're going to continue to put out the content. Now sit back and strap in, because on the line with us today, we have the impressive Janet Zitting Broadbent. Now we're going to be discussing her amazing book, Thrive, in your relationship with yourself and others. It's Amazon, it's Barnes & Noble, it's a lot of other places, man. Type it into a search bar, and you're going to be greeted with all of them, and I promise you, this is one you're going to want to add to your shelf. Before we go any further, I want to take this opportunity and point out the fact that Janet was brought to us by one of the best publishing firms in the business, Author Reputation Press. So for my writers out there listening in, if you've gone through your process and now you need some assistance moving that book you just developed, well, contact Author Reputation Press, people, because this is exactly what they specialize in, man. You're going to want to head on over to authorreputationpress.com and gather all the ways that their fantastic team is going to help you do just that. And listen, it is a true pleasure to have Janet here on the line. People, trust me when I tell you, man, this book is remarkably beneficial. The information found within it, I'm telling you, is second to none. What if the key to thriving in all of our relationships isn't found in others, man? It's not about fixing others, but really about unlocking a radical shift within ourselves. This book is going to have you all looking within. Man, just doing the research and preparation for today's interview with my team, we had so many beneficial discussions. It was forcing us to ask ourselves some powerful questions, and I know it's going to do the exact same thing to you. This book is going to take you on a deep dive into the emotional blind spots that keep us stuck, the game-changing tools that can transform our pain into power is found within the book, and we're going to disclose some of them today. By the time we've concluded, you're going to run to Amazon and Barnes & Noble and purchase copies for yourself. Sit back, strap in, have your notebooks ready. We're about to receive an education here. Janet, first and foremost, welcome to People of Distinction, and thank you very much for being a guest. How are you doing today?
I'm doing wonderful, and thank you for having me, Benji. I appreciate that.
Absolutely. Listen, Janet, it is our pleasure. Thank you for joining us. Before we go into this fantastic book, Janet, tell us a little bit more about yourself and your background.
Well, Benji, growing up was kind of tough. Teenage years was kind of tough. And so I had these questions in my brain about mental health and relationships. Mm-hmm. And I experienced issues with those things. And then I grew up and got married and had children, and still so many questions in my brain. And I went back to college at age 50 and took some psychology classes, and then I took an online class from a wonderful teacher, Marina Theory, and learned so much about relationships and how that ties in with mental health and how easy it is. And basically, Benji, I coach people around my table in my home, and I wanted to make a manual, a book that I could go through with them, but also a book that they could go through without me. So I could replace myself, and they could just buy the book and go through it chapter by chapter. Yeah. And so my life had enough trouble when it comes to relationships and mental health that when I figured that out and how simple it can be, I wanted to share that with the rest of the world. That's about it.
Well, listen, I'm so glad that you did. Listen, in your book, you describe thriving as a transformation, right, from the inside out, which I think is key and so often we miss. How do you personally define a thriving relationship versus one that's merely surviving?
Oh, good question. So when you're thriving, Benji, and something happens that when you're thriving, you don't get triggered as often, right?
Yeah.
But thriving is if a problem comes up, you put the problem out on the table, and you, with your spouse or your people around yourself, you put it out on the table instead of saying, "Oh, I'm a horrible person," or "This person is horrible." You go, "This problem is a tough problem. Let's figure it out." Mm-hmm. So when you're thriving, you can handle the ups and downs of life a lot better. A lot of things, things are going to happen. Somebody could rear end you, this and that. You could lose your job. You could do all these things that can happen that kind of are a problem, that make you feel like you could be a victim of circumstances. But if you're thriving in your relationship with yourself, you will handle those things with curiosity, and you'll be able to resolve them in a much healthier way.
Well, continuing along those lines, right? Focusing on starting primarily with ourselves. If self-worth is the foundation of healthy relationships, which I absolutely believe it is, right? I mean, it's that old adage where you can't love anyone else until you truly love yourself. Well, what's one counterintuitive habit that secretly erodes it? What is one challenge that oftentimes goes overlooked?
Oh, wow. So if you have this voice in your brain, or these thoughts in your brain about who you are, that is more on the negative side, it's the core story of who you think you are, it'll erode everything. You can say positive affirmations constantly, all day, every day. You can do all these things to feel self-love and to feel loved, or to try to make more positive experiences and stuff in your life. But if you have this little voice in your brain telling you you're not good enough, you're not this or that, I call it the core story. If you don't address that, it will spill out into all areas of your life. Yeah. And so it'll erode good relationships with yourself and other people around you.
People, I'm telling you, you got to head on over to Amazon, Barnes & Noble, purchase your copies. Again, the book is called Thrive, man. And once you pick it up, you're going to be doing just that. I'm telling you, this is going to set some things in motion for you. That's truly going to help you move some mountains. You got to pick up your copies here today. Janet Zitting Broadbent is one that you need to remember, okay? It's a name worth mentioning and worth reckoning, because this book is going to help change some things and push you on the right path. You know, Janet, as we now start talking about outer relationships, right? So loving yourself and really getting down to the true intricacies of yourself is going to help you set healthy boundaries. And I think that is a crucial component to this, because once you've figured out your self-worth, then you know the type of relationship you're going to accept and what things you're not going to accept and really avoid. And I know from speaking just with people in my own life, a lot of times people fear setting those boundaries because they fear that will damage relationships. Well, how do you respond to the fear that a lot of individuals feel, and what have you seen happen when someone enforces those healthy boundaries within their relationship?
So boundaries it's such a popular word. Sometimes people use boundaries as kind of a wall to put around people so that they're not triggered. They're triggered and they go, "Oh no, we need a boundary. I don't want to go around this person. So you stay away from me, person." But that really is kind of putting a wall between you and a wonderful opportunity to investigate that trigger that person or that incident triggered, right? Mm-hmm. But we do need boundaries. You're right. So I like to look at boundaries as, this is my boundary. This is what I will do or not do. So if somebody's triggering me, they're angry, or they're coming apart on me, I get to sit and notice how I feel and go, okay, do I have that fight or flight response, and what does this bring up in me, and blah, blah, blah. But also, if I don't choose to be around somebody like that, I can leave the area, right? I can leave. So I have boundaries over what I will do and say, not what other people. I don't want to try to think I can control what that other person's going to say or do, right?
Yeah. Well,
because then it turns into kind of a control thing, and boundaries, sometimes people use them as either a punishment or a control, right?
Right.
And neither of them are healthy. So if the boundaries are, you got to have boundaries, Benji. If you care about yourself, you're going to have boundaries about what, like in a relationship, like how you'll be treated. Yeah, absolutely. Boundaries are wonderful if they're not used to manipulate or punish other people, right?
And I think that's a great point, Janet. And when listen, that last point that you hit on, as long as those boundaries aren't utilized to manipulate or control others. And I think, it's something that I have learned over years and over previous relationships. And I recognize that about myself is when I was younger, into, just kind of looking back, and it's that old adage of hindsight being 20/20. Everything is perfectly clear once you've moved past it and you're able to look back. And talking to younger family members or even just, younger people that I have in my inner circle and seeing certain things that they're going through within their relationships, it's so glaringly obvious sometimes when people understand that they're in a situation that they don't necessarily want to be in, but they're afraid to set those boundaries for one reason or another. And I recognize that, like, it's not only about protecting yourself and your own inner peace, but it's also, listen, the other person needs to be able to understand what the parameters are. And if they're not accepting of that, that's not you manipulating them. That's just you standing up for what is going to continue to satisfy that inner peace of yours. And if you two can't necessarily make it work, whether that's a friendship, a significant relationship, or, what have you, that's not a relationship that is worth your time or clearly your well-being. And I think oftentimes we stay confined in certain situations out of, again, a fear of rejection, a fear of damaging that particular relationship. And ultimately, who ends up getting hurt in the end is you. And that is just, by this point, Janet, I'll tell you, there is nothing more important than my peace of mind. Okay. I've gotten so good at just ending certain relationships. Like, it's not going to happen. I'm not going to sacrifice it anymore. Although it did take some time to get there. So
let me add too, if I might. So it's a respect thing. It's a respect. If you have self-respect, so because of fear that I'm going to lose this friendship or I'm going to lose this person's not going to like me, we allow things to happen that's very disrespectful to ourselves.
Right.
And if we have self-respect and we kind of acknowledge it's just a fear I have of losing friends, and so then my mechanism is to allow them to disrespect me and cross these boundaries of respect. But if you learn respect for yourself as a human and you respect yourself and in your mind you're not being abusive to yourself, then you're going to expect that from other people. And truthfully, Benji, people want to have boundaries anyway in relationships.
Right.
And they'll respect themselves and you more if you stand up for yourself and you're respectful to yourself, right?
Absolutely. Janet, I'm curious now, as we start to close out of this interview, final couple of questions for you. Throughout your particular journey, what is a myth about relationships or even self-worth that you used to believe yourself but now reject?
Here's the thing that people think is they want something from other people and from relationships, and yet they don't even know how to give that to themselves. So respect, safety, and trust are very valuable aspects of a relationship. But if you're not giving yourself that, why do you expect someone else to fill that for you? Why do you go into a relationship with so much neediness if you're not already giving yourself those three components? Why do you expect other people to? And how do you show them the way if you're not doing that for yourself already? Right?
I love that. I love that. People, I'm telling you, like, it starts with us. It reminds me of something that I heard years ago, and I can't remember the particular source, so I'm not even going to try. But the line was something along the lines of, every revolution starts within you. So a lot of times, and this goes hand in hand with what you're discussing and why I think your book is so powerful. So often we expect a change, or, listen, even in a relationship, we expect the apology a lot of times. If you're in a fight with your significant other, we expect it to come from others. We expect others, and then we're left disappointed if it doesn't happen. So often we have to be able to work on ourselves, start on ourselves, forgive ourselves before others are going to be able to see us in a certain light that we are happy, content, and feel fruitful enough to move forward with. I think this is a powerful message here that you're giving, Janet. Your book promises that we are going to love the new us, right? You will love the new you. Well, what is the most surprising change readers have reported to you after they've applied your methods?
Oh, if they'll do each chapter. Now, I've made the book so that you can just do one chapter a week and practice it through that week, and then report back at the end of the chapter and do the little review and the meditation. So if you'll just take it in little sections and not look at that big book and be overwhelmed and think you have to read the whole thing tonight, but if you'll just take little sections of that, it's so exciting to see your perception change. And it's exciting to see you pause when there's an upset or a trigger and welcome that trigger and get curious about that trigger instead of run from it.
Mm-hmm. Janet,
yeah,
I'm curious.
You feel so much better about yourself.
Janet, I'm curious, do you happen to have a favorite chapter or one that you generally gravitate more towards?
Oh, when I work with people around the table, I look at the chapters, and I don't have them right here in front of me, but I look at the chapters that are the core story, and I look at the chapters that are the drama triangle. So let me explain just a tiny bit about that drama triangle, because
yes, please.
We do this all through our lives as we put ourselves and others in this game, in this position of either villain, victim, or hero. These are the mechanisms, and these are the things that we do to survive or get what we think we want, right? Mm-hmm. So you would think, being a villain is never cool. Everybody knows being a villain to other people and to yourself is not productive, right? Being the bad guy.
Right.
Nobody wants to do that, right? Being the victim means that you probably are just frozen in anxiety, and that sucks too. That's not productive, and you won't go anywhere, right? Mm-hmm. I get that you're the victim of circumstances sometimes, but staying in that place, in that position on the drama triangle is not healthy.
Yeah.
And it could even affect your physical health eventually if you're the victim of life. So then you've got the hero aspect. And Benji, you would think, I want to be the hero for people. Yeah, like we have movies with heroes that we all just love to fashion after, but if you're the hero, you've got to have a villain or a victim, right? Mm-hmm. And so you may subconsciously, and this deals with a lot of the subconscious stuff, because our actions stem from so much of the subconscious, and the subconscious directs the way we act so often that we get to look at our subconscious. So subconsciously, we think the hero position would be really good, and we want to hero people, but if you're heroing somebody that's a villain or a victim to something, that person does not feel like that they were able to to take that on themselves. They had to be rescued and saved. And it almost can make them feel less about themselves if they weren't able to overcome what it is that's keeping them a victim. And so it really turns out to be, unless that hero or that person gives them a hand in overcoming that themselves, but it almost tells, if you're the hero, it almost tells that victim, you can't do this, I need to do this. You're not doing it right. You don't know how to do it. I'll just do it. And so it comes off as taking that person's power away, so to speak.
Mm.
And then you get resentful because you're heroing people and you feel like they expect you to do all these things for them. And you put yourself in that place, so you get resentful. And really, it's not good for the hero or the victim, and it really doesn't help that person to see their strength and their power if they've got someone heroing them, right? Doing it for them.
You know, Janet, this is a really interesting concept that is being brought up now because, of course, the book is focusing on working on oneself, right? Starting off within to then improve without. So, okay, I'm picking up what you're putting down. I'm following you down this rabbit hole. So now we've gotten to the point where we have figured out a way to truly love ourselves, okay? And we've worked on the things that we have. And now we're wanting to go into establishing relationships with others in a healthy way. Well, I'm curious to know, how do you balance loving yourself with being open to love from others without over-compromising, right? There's that balance. There's that give and take there. Well, how do we go about balancing it so we don't lose ourselves in the process?
Good question. I think I can answer that. So loving yourself is, I mean, it kind of comes off as that, the sound of that kind of comes off as maybe you'd be prideful and blah, 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 and think you're all that and then some. But it's more about having compassion for your weaknesses and your moments that you fall flat on your face in your relationship or, you know, and it's more about being compassionate with yourself as you pick yourself up and go, okay, let me redo that. Let me restate that. Let me pull back a little bit and kind of look within and see why that triggered me or why I responded the way I did. And then as you learn to have patience for yourself, you also learn to have patience for the people you're in relationships with. So when your spouse kind of has a moment of blaming you for the upset or whatever, when it's really, you know, they're really looking in the mirror, so to speak, and that happens so often, but you have more compassion and go, okay, this person started out with a crappy day and it's just, he's interpreting this in this way because in his brain the day was already crappy. And you have a lot more compassion for individuals. And so basically your self-love oozes out. And as compassion, in my mind, compassion is the ultimate self-love that you can have, is understanding and patience and compassion for yourself. And because we're humans. And so when I make a big mistake, Benji, I stop and I giggle and I say, oh, I'm only human, darn it. You know, and then I go, oh, bummer, and I carry on. And instead of beat myself up and abuse myself, because I wouldn't let my spouse beat me up. So why do I do it to myself in my brain, right? When I've done something that's very human. So as I learn to have compassion for my humanness and my core story that will pop up off and on, even though I've addressed it in a healing way, sometimes my brain forgets that, oh, yep, I've got new information. This core story is not true. Sometimes it pops up again and I get triggered. And I get to be curious about that trigger and be patient with myself and be just very patient and kind. And it's like my body and my mind together were healing and we're learning. And then I'm all of that to the people around me.
'em. Mm. We're
We're harder on ourselves most of the time than we are to our spouse. And we are to our spouse. And we are to our children. And we are to our grandkids. And we are to our So if I see somebody at my table that I'm coaching and they're horrible to their spouse or their children or their coworkers, I think, oh, that's so sad because that person is very harsh to themselves.
And Janet, my final question here for you. We've discussed a lot of information and so many wonderful gems. But what is one thing that you really want your readers to take from your book after they've completed it?
It's possible, guys. It is so possible. And just take little bits at a time and digest it. And some of the book you're going to go, oh, yeah, I knew that. But I give you that opportunity to live that through the week and then describe at the back of that chapter, that review, what came up for you, what you noticed. But I just want you to know it is possible, and open that book. You've ordered it. That's the first step. Then open it. Don't let the dust settle on it. Every week, open it, or if you want to do a chapter for 2 weeks, it takes 2 weeks to do a chapter, then do it. But keep that in your brain so that you notice throughout your week where you can use what you learned in that chapter.
Yeah.
I guess that's it.
Well, Janet, listen, you say, I guess that's it, but that is so profound. That is so important and so special. And people, I love the fact that she broke it down in that way. Her book is separated into increments because much like life and this journey, it's about the process. It's not going to happen overnight. There is a journey in which you're going to be taking, and always remember that true transformation begins within. Thriving relationships aren't built in a day, man, right? Like my wife and I, we have a fantastic relationship, a fantastic companionship, but it also didn't happen overnight. Like we've invested, we've spent time. That old adage of the grass isn't greener on the other side. The grass is greener where you water it, where you cultivate it. And relationships work in the same fashion. As you step forward, carry this truth, man. Loving yourself isn't selfish. It is the foundation for every healthy relationship. You need to be patient with your journey. You need to celebrate each victory and trust that each act of self-worth plants the seed for a deeper, more authentic love. Man, listen, this book is inspiring. This book is going to help shift your perception and cultivate a new you that, I don't even want to say a new you, a more enriched you, I think would be a better way of posing it. This is something that you need to add to your shelf, man. Again, it's Amazon, it's Barnes & Noble. Remember, the book is called Thrive in Your Relationship with Yourself and Others. Janet knows what she's talking about, and the wisdom found here is going to help you know what you're talking about as well. You know where to go. Pick up your copies today. Janet, this has been a true pleasure, an absolute honor. Thank you once again for being a guest on People of Distinction.
Thank you, Benji. I have just enjoyed my time with you. Thank you for interviewing me. I appreciate it.